Добрый день, студенты. While most of your asynchronous work, which will be done in the virtual worksheet, is focused on the new verbs входить, войти, выходить, выйти, I wanted to also provide a little bit of an explanation and walk through with the last activity that you are asked to do today that have to do with the reflexive suffix ся. So just to kind of contextualize where we're at the end of 8.3, you were assigned to do this activity, взять с собой, and we're going to go over собой next week. But I want to contextualize ся as being another way to talk about a reflexive. What you're really doing on your own is working with v and v. So let's go through this activity that straddles 1.63 and 1.64. And so you want to be aware of these four verbs when we talk about ся. So we're going to focus on one of three meanings of ся today. I'm going to contextualize the other two here in just a moment. But we want to be aware of the verbs that have the same translation in English, but actually have different forms in Russian. And there are four of them. Открывать, открыть, and it's reflexive. Открываться, открыться. Закрывать, закрыть. Закрываться, закрыться. To close. Начинать, начать. Начинаться, начаться. To begin, to start. Заканчивать, закончить. Заканчиваться, закончиться. To end or to finish. We're going to use all of these as just the simple verb in English. But Russian distinguishes between transitive and intransitive versions of these verbs. So let me review that. Let's take the verb открывать. Открывать is a transitive verb, meaning that someone opens something. In English, we don't have to distinguish with the verb, right? We can say the store opens and John opens the store. Both of those are going to use the same verb. Russian cannot. So let's go through what we might look for as hints for when we want ся and when we don't want ся. Here I have 7 sentences. В этом году открывается новый магазин. My question for you is, where is the subject? What is the subject of the verb открывается? I hope by now that you have chosen новый магазин. Новый магазин isn't a person, it is a place, right? The new store. Let's try the next one. В 3 часа преподаватель начинает урок. What is the subject? I hope by now that you know that преподаватель is the subject. The teacher is starting the lesson. The teacher is a person. Киоск открывает девушка. This one is really challenging. What is the subject? I hope by now we know that девушка is the subject. We know this because it has to change form if it were the direct object, and it also wouldn't make sense. But here we have the woman is opening the kiosk, or the woman opens the kiosk. The woman is the person doing the opening. Again, it's a person. 4. Здесь продаются билеты в театр. What is the subject? We should see here that it's билеты, and this is a thing, the tickets for the theater. 5. Когда закрывается кафе? What is the subject? Hopefully we realize that кафе is the subject. It's a place. 6. Книги продают наши друзья. Like number 3, this is pretty hard. What is the subject though? Hopefully by now you realize that наши друзья is the subject. It doesn't make sense otherwise, and we would have to change the form of the person to make it the direct object. So our friends are selling books or sell books. It's a person. Занятие начинается в сентябре. What is the subject? This one should be pretty easy. We should see that it is занятие. Now, if we think of a noun as a person, place, or a thing, we see here from these examples that we use ся when the subject is a thing or a place. But we use the verb without ся when the subject is a person. A more concrete grammatical way to think about this is that the suffix ся stands in the place of a direct object. it prevents the sentence from having a direct object because it occupies that place. It stops the direct object. Let's look at these sentences one more time. In sentence number 1, we see that magazine is the subject. It's a place. And so the sentence is going to involve sia. In number 2, prepodavatel, a person, does not have a verb with sia because it's going to be transitive. It's going to require a direct object. In number 3, we see the subject is девушка, again a person, so it's not going to have sia, so it's going to require a direct object. 4, the subject is билеты, a thing. We see here it has sia. It is intransitive. It is not allowed to have a direct object. 5, here the subject is кафе. It is a place, and so consequently, the sentence is going to have sia because there's going to be no direct object. 6, наши друзья is the subject. They are people, and so they are going to necessitate a direct object, and they're not going to use sia. 7, занятия начинается в сентябре. Занятие is a place. It is not going to have a direct object, so therefore it is going to use sia. This is the second part of the activity on page 164. I'm going to suggest that you complete the final section of the practice worksheet and test your understanding of what we just did. Once you come back, please check your answers with me. So, 1. Преподаватель начинает или начинается лекцию в 9 часов. This is that person, and then we should also see лекцию is the direct object. So we should know that there's no sia. In number 2, магазин открывает or открывается в 10 часов. We said magazine is a place, therefore it requires sia. It also doesn't have a direct object. Лекция начинается в 8:30. Here we see лекция again is a place. It's not going to have a direct object, so it requires sia. Когда у вас заканчивается семестр. Semester is the subject. That means that there's not going to be a direct object, and so there is going to be sia. В каком месяце у вас начинается занятие? Занятие here is the subject, which means there's not going to be a direct object, which means they're going to be sia. В этом году семестр закончится 9 мая. Here we have semester is the subject. It's not going to have a direct object, and so it's going to involve sia. 7. Когда он закончится сочинение. Here, он represents a person. We see the direct object сочинение, so there is going to be no sia. All right, we should be good to go. I look forward to the work you do on входить and войти, as well as выходить and выйти. But this sia can be quite complicated, which is why I wanted to give you a little quick overview. До свидания!